Alright, so jumping into the second game here, this is right after the first game where I kept all 4 error cards. I'm 1-0 and I'm playing against a very good Grandweaver Int player. So agility versus Int is one of the most common matchups. I'm going to do a pretty in-depth breakdown here. And maybe you want to play along here and think of the cards you want to keep. But I actually end up keeping, I end up pitching Bolt and keeping Gale, Anoint and Flame, Samaya Speed, and Tox. Very interesting keep, very non-standard. Samaya Speed, Gale, and Anoint and Flame are actually 3 of the lowest rated cards on Skyweaver stats. So I basically kept 3 of the worst cards for Samaya, but the way they work in conjunction with each other, especially going first off the coin, where you can play Gale on turn 1. I was saying in my first video that Gale, or actually maybe I didn't mention it, but I will now. Gale on turn 1 is actually like a pretty strong play. Like Gale is pretty underrated, I would say. Although it's hard to say a win rate is underrated, but Gale is actually really strong on the first few turns, but especially on turn 1 because he adds a lot of pressure to the board. The Shroud makes very few answers that can answer him. Like you can answer him with a slash plus a banner. You could answer him with like a backstab, but that's like basically about it. And then he's putting a lot of like pressure on the board because he can also trade a lot. If you have like any banner follow up, he's basically doing a lot of damage. And so when I see this is kind of a more advanced like interaction, but this Anoint and Flame, and by the way, these videos are for like all skill levels, so apologies if you're really good and I share some basic stuff, but like Anoint and Flame is a card that gives banner, but some people don't know that you can give it to yourself. You can give it to your hero. That's like the main use of it. Maybe that's why the win rate for that card is so bad, because I actually don't think the card's that bad. But so now the way the interaction works, and the reason I know this is because someone did it to me and absolutely destroyed me. But if you play the Anoint and Flame, then first of all, you're picking up 2, 4, so you're picking up 6 damage on turn 2, but it can basically go anywhere you want. So like when you play this Gale, right, on the first turn, and let's say your opponent has, a bunch of stuff that can just be killed by banner, then they're getting wrecked. But even if they're playing stuff that isn't killable by banner, you get 2 attacks with Gale. So you can kill basically anything that they play. And then Samaya's Speed on the next turn is going to overwrite the Anoint so that you don't have to pay the 2 damage per cost, because that's the real drawback of playing Anoint early. So it's like a really strong combination here. My opponent does play this card though, which would have been pretty annoying because I would have taken 4 damage and fed over 4 healing, but I top decked the Yellow Jack like a true professional, and Gale's going to pick up that extra damage there. And here my opponent plays Water Rune. Is such a good card in this matchup because it lets them kill all kinds of stuff that they have no business killing. But I was a little sad when my opponent killed the Gale, but I just pull off the Anoint into Samya combo. I think my opponent bricks on 4. Yeah, basically has to manage memory, and then I kind of take over the game here because now I have this banner loaded Samya Speed, and I'm not taking the life because usually you don't want to pay the 2 mana to turn this thing off because tempo is so important in this game. But I just kind of take over the game from here. So my opponent coins this out. Not going to work. Also, in fairness, I did have a very good hand. These are 2 of the best mid-game, kind of mid-range agility cards. So yeah, and it just kind of takes over from here. He gets a full clear here. but all my plays here are pretty standard, and the game's just a wrap. So yeah, I thought that game was pretty fun because of the mulligan keep, which is something that, honestly, I might not have even done myself if I hadn't seen someone absolutely wreck my face with that one. So after that, the game was pretty much a formality. And I'm actually going to fast forward to the third game where I was playing for the gold card.